Welcome to the Family Bible Journey. Every time you listen, you are a blessing and encouragement to us as we seek to leave the legacy of faith as we journey and journal through the Bible. So thanks for listening. This is episode 173, season 1 of the Family Bible Journey Old Testament podcast. Today we're looking at 2 Samuel chapters 1 and 2. The title of today's podcast is David, King of Judah. And our key passage for today is chapter 1, verses 1 to 10, where we read, After the death of Saul, when David had returned from striking down the Amalekites, David remained 2 days in Ziklag. And on the third day, behold, a man came from Saul's camp, with his clothes torn and dirt on his head. And when he came to David, he fell to the ground and paid homage. David said to him, Where do you come from? And he said to him, I've escaped from the camp of Israel. And David said to him, How did it go? Tell me. And he answered, The people fled from the battle, and also many of the people have fallen and are dead, and Saul and his son Jonathan are also dead. Then David said to the young man who told him, How do you know that Saul and his son Jonathan are dead? And the young man who told him said, By chance I happened to be on Mount Gilboa, and there was Saul leaning on his spear, and behold, the chariots and the horsemen were close upon him. And when he looked behind him, he saw me and called to me, and I answered, Here I am. And he said to me, Who are you? I answered him, I am an Amalekite. And he said to me, Stand beside me and kill me, for anguish has seized me, and yet my life still lingers. So I stood beside him and killed him, because I was sure that he could not live after he had fallen. And I took the crown that was on his head, and the armlet that was on his arm, and I have brought them here to my Lord. This is the word of the Lord. This is a very sad day for David when he learns of the death of King Saul and his good friend Jonathan, and it is the beginning of 2 Samuel. And just a quick note on these two books that originally, we believe, 1 and 2 Samuel were one long composition. We don't know exactly when or how or who it was that decided to divide these two books. There are many who would believe that it goes back to the time of the Hebrew Old Testament being translated into the Greek Septuagint, but nobody knows for sure. But this portion of Samuel's work begins with David now hearing of the death of Saul and Jonathan. And this messenger turns out to be quite a fool because he felt somehow that he would win David's favor by telling David that he had killed his quote-unquote enemy, Saul. And I have that as a note on chapter 1, verse 10. It says he thought he'd win David's favor by saying he killed David's, quote, enemy. And this messenger ends up being a dummy who's going to die for a lie, which is my note on verse 16. Apparently, this messenger didn't know that David himself had spared Saul's life on a number of occasions. And we know that he was close to the battle, may have even participated in the battle, because he was able to get that crown from Saul and the armlets before anyone else came to pillage the battlefield. And this man, he may have been a soldier. He may have also just been a random person who was waiting for the end of the battle so he'd go in and loot the corpses on the battlefield. And so whether this man was a soldier or just a scavenger, he turns out to not be very smart, because he dies for his lie. And David then sings a psalm for Jonathan and Saul. It is a psalm of lament, and in this lament he curses Mount Gilboa. And the last time that I visited Mount Gilboa, I observed that it is a very dry mountain in what is otherwise a pretty green and lush part of the country up there in the Galilee. And my Jewish guide who took us to the mountain credited David's curse as the reason why this mountain is still barren and relatively dry. And to give you an idea as to how difficult of an environment is found on Mount Gilboa, there are huge areas of Israel that have been reforested as gifts of benevolence from either Jewish or Christian families around the world. And many forests have been planted in the name of many famous families. The Jewish National Fund is an organization that has helped to raise millions and millions of dollars for this purpose. And you will see forests in Israel named after people like Anne Frank and even the Kennedy family. But when they tried to plant trees on Mount Gilboa, it was very difficult to find a tree that would actually grow there. It is so dry, it is so barren that now there is just a few pine trees, scraggly looking pines on that mountain. It takes some of the hardiest pine trees because this is one of the hardest places for trees to survive because of the scant rainfall. But after mourning David and Jonathan, we see in chapter 2 that David is anointed king of Judah. He has become the monarch in a divided country, where tribal interests still trump national interests. And the family of Saul, namely Ishbosheth, has been made king of Israel. Abner, who was the commander of Saul's army, raised Ishbosheth to power as a rival king to David, and we could see how Abner would have a vested interest in the continuance of the family of Saul since he was Saul's general. And so there is going to be a battle for the monarchy of Israel. We may have thought that the path to the throne would have been easy for David, with Saul and Jonathan dead, and many of Saul's sons perished on the battlefield. But nothing in this life is as easy as it should be. And I have a word of wisdom on this chapter 2. It says, it's not a bump in the road, it's the road. Because life is difficult, and anything worth doing in this life is going to be hard. And so even though David has the blessing of the Lord, even though he has tons of popular support, when he is anointed king, he is anointed king of Judah only, and not king of a united Israel. But we're going to see in the coming chapters that God is going to work through some key players and even some treacherous and cunning scheming and events to bring David to the throne of united Israel. If you'd like to let us know that you are either journaling with us through the Bible or reading through the Bible, whether it's for the first time or again, or if you'd like to host an event, please let us know by using the contact form at the website, familybiblejourney.com. Our blessing for today. May you trust the Lord with vengeance and not be consumed with anger. Amen.